Good morning, everybody. You got Cowboy here. We got Veles. It's Friday, and it is 11:10 a.m. EST. V the Gorilla is on the way, and we have a fun show today. We're going to get into some pretty fun stuff. We got aliens and volcanoes and weather and stuff. But before we get into all of that, Veles, how are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are things on your side of the United States?
Oh, they're calm here. They're pretty much always calm here, with the exception of the occasional fire and people shooting the firemen. But besides all of that,
Right.
everything is doing pretty good. A good cool summer. Usually the summers out here are the temperature tends to kind of float around 100. So like the high 90s, low hundreds. But this summer it's just kind of knocked its head on 100 and keeps going down to like the 80s and 90s, which is just lovely. I don't know how it's going to be for the fruit harvest, but
It's a dry heat.
yeah, it's a dry heat. Game over, man. So, yeah. So how things out your way? Is it nice and lovely weather-wise?
It's a touch humid, but I don't want to say it could be worse. Like V says, it could be worse. I just mean that for those of us out here in the Midwest, and I'm basically telling you all from Iowa and Nebraska over to Western Pennsylvania, just very, very weird the amount of rain we've had. And I'm not saying that with a sense of humor, because obviously, my the city that my relatives entered the United States in 1920, Milwaukee, is bailing water right now, and depending on who you talk to, that corner of Lake Michigan has not had this kind of rain since 1870.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so their water containment systems and similar are just massively overwhelmed. Now, I don't mean this again to be flippant, but much like the Nile overflowing its banks, which, we did just celebrate the helical rising of Sirius on Monday the 11th, which is what usually ushers that in. We've got a couple of states out there, including, everybody's favorite West Texas and other areas that are dealing with severe flooding. And certainly my prayers go out to first responders and others that are trying to keep those situations under control. However, if farmers did get their crops in early enough, because I can tell as I've been driving around the Midwest, I've seen certain farm fields where corn or soy are still kind of struggling to get going because they were planted late. And so when they were planted late, they were just dealing with rain, and they couldn't really get hauling. But for any of the farmers that planted early, I've never seen the kinds of crops I'm seeing growing out there right now of a number of different varieties. So we may have some very, very strong food production. Of course, as anybody who has lived with or gone to school with sons and daughters of farmers, this is also the sort of situation, folks, that makes one scratch one's head and say, however, does that mean we're going to have snowfall, the likes of which we haven't seen since 1976 out there, for those who remember the blizzard that absolutely walloped us during those years? So we'll just have to see. V will be joining us, and I will say this on the air. He's got a little bit of a pattern here the last couple of shows where Algo is just up in the AWACS running things until V rolls in. And that's fine, because as you all are tired of hearing me say, we all do have we have other lines of work, which is how we're able to actually keep these shows going with the car battery. Algo, if it's okay with you, I was going to share with the audience some items I had for us, and then we'll see, folks, when V rolls in. One of the topics, obviously, the three of us wanted to cover today was Alaska and the Alaska negotiations between Russia and the United States, which strangely has not had anywhere near the coverage it should have. So, Algo, if that's okay with you, I'll start us off, and we'll see where we are at that point.
Oh, by all means.
Alrighty. So, as all of you can probably tell, today is not a normal Veles program. I thought I had something I was going to do today, which I'm not doing, but I didn't really prepare much in the way of content. So I've got some stuff to get us going. And then Algo and V and I were texting, as we often do, because we have insomnia. And I said, hey, why don't the three of us just do a program tomorrow, because there's a lot of threads and things from this week, especially with E.M. Burlingame's program and some of the other content we've been covering. So The first item is from discussions I've had with folks I know personally who listen to the show, as well as some listeners on Discord. This item popped up. If there's content I personally cover where any of you in the audience would like to know more, or you had confusion or were a little fuzzy about something I said, or historical background or what have you, or technology background, some of the topics I cover, please let me know. Reach out and send me a message on Discord if you're on Discord, or just post it in the comments on YouTube. I do go through those comments. And also, like when the show is done and you can post a message about the program, feel free to throw something in there either on Rumble or YouTube or well, I was going to say wherever. It'd be Twitch, but you can't do that on Twitch. But if you post something on YouTube or Rumble after the program is on replay, I do check those comments as well. I've even responded to some people who've had some questions out there. So if there's some clarity you'd like on something I've covered, please by all means let me know. And to Valley Girl and others that I know may be raising this topic, I just wanted to say I am I am going to get a Gmail account set up. Probably it'll be Veles at Gmail, unless that name's taken. So that folks can reach out to me and I can get you. I'll take over what CJ used to do and help you all get on Discord for those of you that are not on there. So private equity, nothing too deep. We've covered this a bit on some other programs, but the coverage in the private equity media continues to focus on a number of things revolving around Europe, including the numbers of deals and types of deals taking place in Europe. So I would just point out to remember some of the coverage we've had on this on other rogue programs. Private equity goes where the money is. And that's often in distressed industries, or we have behavior like what occurred in the 1980s with mergers and acquisitions, where firms would be bought, cut up, and then sold to make money off the individual pieces rather than the net whole. And that was after often they cut a lot of money out of the organization. Now, you'll hear MBA programs or Harvard Business Review or others say, well, we've removed cost from the business. Yeah, spare me. Every business I've ever worked for, even those that are making crazy money hand over fist, like telecom in the 90s or the fracking sector around 2007 through 2010 and 11, even those industries were still looking for areas to cut cost or not to go too crazy with their spending. So when you hear them cutting money out of an organization, they're cutting assets. They're cutting things that business needs, like people. But private equity is in the business of making money. They're not in the business of creating jobs, and not just jobs for jobs' sake, but you all know what I mean. So if private equity, like the vultures they are showing up in Europe, there's a reason. And it's because of what we've said before, that Europe is vulnerable and Europe's got issues. And so PE is out there doing their thing, and I'm going to continue to monitor what's going on to the degree that I can in the private equity space in Europe, simply because it's a very good indicator. I'll also take this to kind of pull us off the side of the road here for a moment. Algo and V and I have been talking the last week. And right now I'm putting together an outline for a future program where the three of us will present. And what we're going to do very loosely, and my apologies to Algo because I'm still trying to get the outline to he and V. What we're going to do on a future program, the three of us, is we're going to identify basically, here's what we think is going to happen in 2026. Here's what we think is going to happen in 2030. And economically, socially, politically, et cetera. And then also, how are the apex elites going to get us there? I wouldn't say their motivations necessarily, but it's like, how are they going to get us there? There's a lot of things that are happening in the United States right now, as well as globally, but especially in the United States, that the obviousness of what's happening is now no longer conjecture. And very loosely said, there are things happening in the United States right now that, for me, as both somebody of an ethnic Russian background, and Scottish as well, but for any of us that are in the white Russian community, when we see what's going on in the United States right now, this is all very frighteningly familiar to us. This has a very 1905, 1917 feel to it. Now, I'm not saying the United States is going to collapse in a ball of flame. I'm just saying there are things going on right now in the United States that definitely have indicators to methods that have been used before historically. So for this future program that V and Algo and I are putting together, We're going to cover not just the backstory, but we're also going to get into some tools and some approaches and some things all of you can use to kind of be better prepared for those sorts of things. Hey, V.
Hey, how's it going, guys? How are you?
Just fine, sir.
Morning, V.
So I'm running through some stuff at the moment, and then when I wrap that up, the three of us can let loose.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Cool. So next item, nuclear energy. My thanks as always to N.A. Knight for his excellent research and monitoring of all things nuclear, both in energy development as well as just general news, which he has been posting on the Discord page. As we've covered on Rogue for some time, the technology is ready at both the micro and macro level. You can read that as small and big reactors. Equally, laws are being passed, and just yesterday or the day before, again, my thanks to Knight, the U.S. government has identified, I think it was 7 or 8 firms who are now the government's preferred vendors for all things micronuclear reactor or macronuclear reactor going forward. So, this is not meant to be snarky. We keep bringing this up on Rogue, not like, hey, you better do something about this. That's not what we mean. It's just an awareness that they're doing this. They're going in this direction. And I know some folks that manage their own investments and or some small private equity outfits near where I live, and they have been making investments in those companies, including, Bill Gates's outfit out in Kemmerer, Wyoming, anticipating that these things are going to go in this direction. So the point of this part of today's program is, look, it's, from a government endorsement standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a Department of Energy standpoint, on and on and on. The groundwork has been laid. They've certainly identified what officially is the reasoning why we need all this power. One of the bigger ones, obviously, being the topic you hear frequently, which is artificial intelligence-related data centers. And then noting what I said earlier about the topic of Discord. We've been posting on Discord a couple of articles and things that do big graphics and stuff and demonstrate when it comes to specifically not just computer data centers or IT, information technology data centers, but data centers focused on AI. What was it? Like the United States has 30, China has 29, and then like the next nearest country is like 8. So, I mean, it's pretty much the United States and China are rolling forward with this. And the amount of electrical energy that those sites need, as well as water, is immense. So, obviously, nuclear energy needs water. So, take that information as you will. Playboy. No, I didn't stutter. Though a quasar of its former self as a corporate entity, Playboy is leaving the state of California, much like In-N-Out Burger. These moves are psychological to the power structure of California, more so than the oil company who left earlier this year and took $100 or $200 billion with them to Texas. Playboy is moving their headquarters to Miami. To quote Spock, fascinating. The John Singleton program on Monday, August 11th. In case any of you have not listened to that program or haven't had an opportunity to, please do so. The content he covered regarding how he's applying AI systems to the legal world are, in my view, quite powerful. One of the things that immediately popped into my mind as Singleton was walking through, now as the old saying goes, the proof is in the pudding, is the working product doing what it's supposed to. But from what he was saying on that program, the immediate thought that popped into my mind was, boy, imagine if during the COOF, we had the kinds of tools he's developing available at that time. When it comes to, for many of us who just on a regular basis, we don't write legal motions, we don't ask to depose witnesses, etc., whether school boards, your local government officials. I'm not talking about suing somebody. But all of that now being something that these tools can develop. Now, in my own line of work, I can tell you we're putting our big toe in the water for the use of these tools for a number of things. And I know for my more traditional project management or program management brothers and sisters, there's a number of tools now that develop meeting minutes with action items, which I have to tell you, I completely agree with John. You can't just use these tools and go there and just hand it to somebody. You've got to look at what it produced. You've got to go through and edit it. You probably need to cross-check with somebody who knows these things just to make sure that the terms and conditions are drafted out properly. Same thing when I use them at work for developing meeting minutes or other things. But it gets you off the ground much more quickly It gives you something to start with. You're not beginning with a clean sheet of paper and just writing up from the scribble that you put together during a meeting or whatever the situation may be. So it's not a panacea. But to me,
Veles, to interject on that really quickly, I sat, as you know, with the EM the other day. We had a long conversation, and he says that when it comes to legal documentation, that type of thing, he said, this is according to him, Grok was developed almost with that as a purpose, because this is an Elon based AI, right? And so a lot of the legal battles that are going on are Grok seems to be the AI for that one. I'll leave it there. Let him expand on that. You may already know these things too. So,
and thank you for the qualification, which also brings up a very good point, folks, which is I saw this again in the 90s. You had ever-growing interconnected computer systems. You had better and better software. You had better and better systems designed to help people look information up in whatever the industry may be. This is where you had pure play firms. Case in point, speaking of the legal community, the two biggest behemoths in that industry, you had Westlaw and you had LexisNexis. And they took technology and tailored it to that market, because lawyers are very funny people. I mean, I had LexisNexis as a client, and I can't tell you the numbers of times people were rubbing their temples down there saying, I'm still speaking to senior partners of law firms that are still using typewriters and graph paper or carbon paper to make copies, because that's all they know. And damn it, don't tell me to change how I do my job. The same thing is happening with AI. We've got these basic tools out there, whether it's Grok, whether it's Rock, whether it's Claude. I like Claude. Or some of the others that are out there. You basically have what in IT parlance is the engine. You've got the engine. Now what car are you going to stick it in? I'll use that analogy. So, well, I need a truck. Okay, good. Here, we'll put the engine in your truck. I need a fast car. Okay, we'll use a different engine and we'll put it in the fast car. This is what's happening, and this is the normal evolution. Now, specific again to the legal community, did a number of law students in the state of California who tried to pass the bar exam end up, say it with me, no joke, suing the state of California? Because what happened? The damn law exam was, because they just didn't want to put the effort into it, when they created, and this was some time ago, what, maybe 8-9 months ago, the state of California created the next iteration of the exam to become an attorney, to pass the bar exam. It was created with AI, and nobody bothered to check the AI, so it was wrong. So the state had to apologize and say, okay, we'll give special consideration to those of you that already took the damn thing. We're really sorry. Please don't sue us again. There's a number of attorneys that have lost their licenses because they used AI tools and didn't check the work. So, like anything, folks, trust but verify. That said, this is like the old thing about, which I appreciated. I had a lot of teachers when I was growing up that said, you're not bringing a calculator in here until you're like a junior in high school. You're going to get this stuff down. I know it's painful, but you're going to get this stuff down, and then you're going to start using a calculator, because you've got to understand the basics. Same thing with accounting and similar. Well, I'll just, especially MBA programs, I'll just call my accountant. Your accountant could be lying to you.
Sure.
Oh.
In that vein, I actually spent almost 20 years in the insurance business, and a lot of that was in contract interpretation. So hold on a second, I got a little noise in the background there. Apologies. So even after that life, when I was dealing with, my own attorneys and getting contracts, that kind of thing, I would personally review those contracts, despite the fact that I paid thousands of dollars to an attorney to write that contract for me. I would read every single line through that contract, and I would find things that were of concern. So just an additional layer of, yes, Veles is right.
I appreciate that. Equally, I've done the same thing with court cases, not to call out or question my lawyer that they don't know what they're doing, but just, hey, look, we all do it. I crossed out this and I wrote this into the space for your court case versus the one I just had. It's like, yeah, I know, but that's wrong. Let's not do that. And as we often say here, we are not dispensing legal advice. We are not dispensing medical advice. We are not dispensing whatever. Just pointing that out. But these tools will come in more and more handy for us, folks, as we deal with school boards, homeowners associations, townships, cities, etc., or even, yes, court cases themselves. There are, and I love John Single, by the way, before I wrap up on this segment. God, I just was laughing like a schoolgirl on this side watching his program with you guys when he said that he was turning around. I'm going to channel my inner Gustinos. He was turning around documents faster than the other lawyers could respond to it. And I was just like, you litigious SOBs. How dare you move so quickly and make us do our jobs? The whole point of the legal community is extortion.
Correct.
So that said, let's move into something meaty like warfare, folks. The tactical in the Ukraine conflict. You won't hear much of this topic in the European or American press, and you would really need to dig to find it, nor is it propaganda on behalf of Russia. Ukraine was working on a tactical missile system with a range of about 500 to 700 kilometers, or for those of us who don't speak metric, 300 to 430 miles. Such a missile could carry a variety of ordnance and could strike several large cities in Russia, including Moscow. Russian intelligence discovered the program, who supposedly was using Soviet-era technology with NATO guidance from Germany. Warheads included such lovelies as thermobaric explosives. Late in July, after monitoring by Russia's intelligence services, including Western defense contractors' communications, the Russian military hit all the related construction sites in Ukraine. This included preliminary strikes on Western-supplied radar and air defense systems protecting those sites. Why does this matter? First, there are many examples, including this one, of Russia's military operating at a much higher level of integration than they do traditionally. Often the Russian military, from the Chechnya conflict to Syria to Ukraine, will make the striking of targets by air or artillery and then send in ground forces. More and more, Russia's leveraging intelligence assets first, including their special forces known as the Spetsnaz, on the ground to assess targets at a more granular level. Then they leverage military assets in a far more integrated way than they used to do. One of the reasons why several of their latest operations in Ukraine took down fortified positions is because of this. In the case of those fortified locations like Pokrovsk, which we discussed last week, they used Spetsnaz to take out key defenses and power supplies before the attack began, along with other attacks behind enemy lines. Ukraine and NATO were not expecting that, and those fortified sites fell. It's the same with this removal of the Sapsan missile development. Further, I don't think Germany is the guilty party, because the only source who says it was Germany is Britain, which therefore means in my book, it was Britain, not Germany. Because, you know, speaking of, I only know one way to do something, they only know one way to do something.
The masters of projection.
The masters of projection. Almost on par with our friends who keep screaming about redistricting. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, a refresh on the game. Recalling prior programs, just a few reminders. Apex elites play the long game, and there are no true political parties in the U.S., much less anywhere else. And no, it's not the bankers who control everything, nor people of a particular religious persuasion. However, you do have elites who self-identify, if they identify at all, 100 ways, all of which are meant to distract. Donald Trump is not a savior, nor is he the devil. He's a break with a group of folks from George Bush Sr. to all the way through Barack Obama, that being people who were leaders in or assets of the U.S. intelligence community, and that's been proven and established in the public domain. Please also recall, whenever media, social media, websites, certain talking heads, people on YouTube wear hats, some of you may get that, and I mean more than Tim Pool, all start sounding the same way on something, a lot of money just got spent. So where am I going with this? The last 2 months, after much chatter about new U.S. trade deals, the United States throwing its weight around, we suddenly have a massive level of outright and subtle attack on the Donald. Again, separate us from the person and focus on the goals. Is Donald for hire? Sure he is. He has been since he was involved in real estate in New York and a lot of other self-promotion. Does that make him good or bad? Neither. It makes him a high-profile person who can be leveraged by others. What do I often say about high-profile public personalities? They're there to distract from the people who are running them. Again, neither good nor bad. This is just part of the big game of the world's apex elites. Have we had a massive shift in behind-the-scenes elites in the U.S.? I would say there's a lot of evidence to confirm that. To oversimplify, the people running whoever is in the White House are no longer the same people from 1988 to 2016. Most probably a different set of elites in both banking and U.S. intelligence. Ergo, the Donald. A bunch of trade deals and related were signed, and the U.S. has been throwing a lot of weight around. Here's an important takeaway, of many. We could have always thrown this kind of weight around for decades and didn't. Why? In my opinion, and to oversimplify, a lot of key people in the United States were bought off, blackmailed, or both. A lot of that purchasing was done by the London Corporation and Davos. To note E.M. Burlingame's comments from yesterday, at this time we should probably consider Riyadh and Saudi Arabia as being on par with Davos. Yet, we're having a ton of media and social influence pushback at present, not the least of which has been several South Park episodes targeting the administration, something I find a little funny. Sure, they went after Scientology and other organizations or people who were feared. Now they're going full bore on the current administration. Okay. But yet, when did South Park ever go after topics like Gaza, foreign policies of the Levant, or Joe Biden? I'm just asking for a friend. So in conclusion, why this sudden level of assault against the administration? I'd put forward one significant reason among many is Europe and the London Corporation don't want war in the Ukraine to end. They no doubt knew the negotiations in Alaska were being formulated and lost their minds. Recall Matthew Ehret's many years of excellent work, along with his wife, about what really occurred prior to and during the American Civil War, or for those of you down south, the war between the states, and Russia and the United States. Same during the period around the Federal Reserve in World War I. By that I mean a little-known fact being Imperial Russia knew what the Federal Reserve really was about. Not an institution in the U.S., but because who was backing it. Nothing will wake the dead in London faster than hearing the United States and Russia are working together in a major way. Some of you may have heard some folks, including Tom Luongo, discussing the symbolism around Alaska as a site for these negotiations. As an ethnic Russian, I cannot possibly express to you how symbolic such a meeting is at that location.
Yeah.
No, it's not about nationalists in Russia saying they want Alaska back. It's much, much deeper and symbolic for the Russian community. It's like Kosovo Polje in Serbia, but without all the negative connotations. This is an immense symbolism of over 100 years by their meeting in Alaska, and you better believe apex elites everywhere know why. This is not Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev at Reykjavik, Iceland in the 1980s. This is 100 times bigger. So speaking of Alaska, say what you will about the meetings taking place, but this much is true. A summit like this should have had weeks of press coverage in the U.S. Instead, we've had crickets, and there's a reason for that. Even news aggregators like Citizen Free Press or Rantingly, who, yes, admittedly are conservative in their leanings, are conspicuously quiet. It's not hyperbole to say the last two U.S. presidents who attempted major cooperative arrangements with Russia or the Soviet Union were killed very publicly. The argument could be made this is the third time, and God help us if something goes sideways. Like any major meeting between political leaders, my friends, have no illusions about the backstory. Many topics and areas for negotiation are nearly complete before anyone stepped on a plane. Subordinates of major leaders of any organization always take care of all of this prior to the senior leaders lifting a pen. This is too much security, too many high-profile leaders on both sides, too much of everything to solely be about Ukraine. There's a huge potential of a narrative who says in order to reduce tensions, the U.S. and Russia will work more closely together. Oh, sure, we won't admit or bring that up early on, but most probably that's the plan. Ironically, at the Congress of Vienna, the Russian Tsar Alexander I was there to express his vision for how Europe could work together. Ironically, it was none other than Henry Kissinger, of all people, who pointed out Europe was more interested in their interests rather than ideals, so that opportunity failed. Dare one say a model for governments and economics. Equally, I can hear the Donald now. Well, we were going to work with Ukraine because they had the national resources. Now Russia's sitting on them, so we will work with Russia. Does this mean we can pay for baseball tickets in rubles? No. But if the U.S. is going to continue to step away from Europe, then Russia would love to fill that vacuum. Europe will say they're concerned about such a thing because, according to them, Russia is going to militarily invade everyone. That's funny. Given the degree to which Russian oligarchs own the best real estate in London already, I think that battle's already over. There are several Russian carrots to soothe U.S. negotiators, including rare earth minerals, titanium, and similar for all those nuclear power plants it appears we're going to build, not to mention uranium at prices that will beat anything dug out of the U.S. territory. We will see. With that, I turn it over to V and Nick for input and thoughts.
Oh, very well said. Cowboy, you want to add anything? Because I came in on the tail end of this.
Well, no, it's I would say that I do think it's valuable to kind of take a step back and just consider the idea that no, it's not a particular group of people who run everything. That was just a comment that was made kind of, before we got into the Donald and the attack on him and everybody who's going to look at things so myopically. And another myopic way of looking at things is, Trump is our savior. It's like, no, he's a guy who has people backing him and directing him and things like that. That's one thing that I know this is not an official Veles show, but the Veles show is really good at staying very pragmatic, not really taking too many sides per se, except maybe the side of humanity and, things that are good and just. So just a good kind of backup note on that. But I know that we did kind of advertise that we were going to talk about aliens and, weather and volcanoes and stuff. So maybe we just jump into that.
Yeah, guys, there's been a lot of anomalies. And Cowboy, I don't know if you could bring it to the screen, some of the things that I shared with you guys in our group chat.
Yeah, stand by. I'll grab that.
Yeah, about the situation with that TR-3B. Also, that's a triangular aircraft.
Yep.
But also I think Veles, I think about a week ago, you talked about some river turning into blood.
Sea of Galilee.
Yeah, the Sea of Galilee, correct. And now we have
on the 8th, which was the 8th of August, which was the Lion Gate for those of you into astrology or astrological types of things.
Correct.
We had we had all of the big buttons in the apex elite religious world.
Yes.
We had portents of disasters, stars in the skies. What do you call it? Seas turning blood red. V, I think you sent one of some other rivers that were turning red.
There's appearance of blood red waterfalls all around the world that are occurring right now.
Yes.
Cowboy, that is the link. If you can't find it, I'll send it to you on Telegram, and then you could. That's the link that's from King Arthur fan, I think it is.
Yeah, there's a ton of links in the last couple of days.
So what I'm gonna do, Cowboy, I'm gonna send it to you right now on Telegram, and then you pull it up.
Gator, thank you. Yes, the known unknown believed not sure topic of the red heifer.
Yeah, that whole red heifer thing was secretly done. That was another thing that came up.
Note the color.
Note the color, red heifer, right? And
we have Galilee turning red. We have the red heifer.
Yeah, and look at this. Put the volume up, Cowboy. Cowboy, can you get the volume?
One moment, please.
Cow person. I'm using his nondescript pronoun.
Algo?
Do we lose him?
Yes, sir.
Hey, could you get volume, bro? Volume. We need volume.
Actually, V, I heard you kind of like gently talking in the background, so I thought maybe you had a hot mic moment there.
No.
You're talking to me.
He wanted the volume turned up on the video.
I did. That was up. All right, let's see if we can fix that.
That's odd.
That's real odd. Hold on a second.
We are not Tim Pool, folks, broadcasting to you from a studio paid for by the intelligence community. This is
right.
As I'm fond of saying, it's like you've purchased something from Europe, where it's like you will see slight imperfections, which are the nature of the handmade nature of the product you just purchased.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I did share with volume, so I know the difference, right? So let's go ahead. Let's share with volume again. Go ahead and say quite loudly if you cannot hear the volume.
Waterfall casting
there we go.
Layers of ice, as if the earth itself were bleeding. Shortly thereafter, similar red streams were observed deep within the rainforests of South America. Even more bizarrely, satellite imagery revealed that certain salt lakes in the Middle East, which had been dry for years, had turned a deep red within just a few days. Despite being separated by tens of thousands of kilometers, they seem to be connected by an invisible hand. Scientists say this is a harbinger of doom. Throughout history, every global Echon natural phenomenon has been accompanied by a turning point in civilization. Blood red water was once seen as a symbol of divine punishment in ancient times. And now, phenomena that science and data cannot fully explain seem to be pushing us back into that ancient fear once again.
All right, now pull up that triangular aircraft, the TR-3B.
I love their very gentle, very like scientific language. Harbinger of doom.
Right.
It's like a heavy metal band.
We've turned the science page of the news into WWE.
Yeah, that's the science can pretty much explain that, but whatever. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit play.
And yes, for some of you in the comments section, I would concur that we no doubt have higher. Which, by the way, I mean you can go to any NOAA, you can go to a couple of astronomy sites. The sun is pumping out higher levels of different types of radiation it doesn't normally emit, or at those levels. We have a weakening magnetic shield, and so of course it's going to influence things on the planet. And now we bring you a triangle.
Yeah, this, okay, there you go. This is a TR-3B looking. Yeah,
or to quote from Monty Python, a man with 3 buttocks.
A man with 3 buttocks. Fantastic. And I have the original video as well. It's not CGI or AI. This happened in Mexico. A lot of weird stuff happening in Mexico, man. What's your take on that, Veles?
That it's funny you say that, because there's I either want to say The Simpsons or King of the Hill, the animated either of the animated series, or comedians for years have joked about like somebody's got a statue of the Virgin Mary in Guadalupe that is bleeding beer or something, you know, and it's like I'm not to put down my friends south of the border, because I have many of you, but it's always this running gag that it's like some rural community in Mexico either has visions of the Virgin Mary or similar, and I'll go there. To me, that's no different than famous UFO stories in Brazil. Or other parts of South America where, yeah, I'll go there. Somebody somewhere, most probably in the general Langley area of Virginia, is testing something in foreign countries because, especially in rural areas, because they have less of a radar coverage, they have less capability to photograph anything. And so it just becomes some, average person who sees something or interacts with something, and it takes on a religious connotation. When I first went into the Caribbean, I called my friends who are Cubans, and I said, hey, before we go down there, what can you tell me about the Chupacabra? And they all just start cracking up. And the guy puts his mom on, and she's like, what did you say? I said, the Chupacabra. And she starts laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny? And they're like, we didn't think any gringo north in the United States even knew what the hell the Chupacabra was. They're like, only you would know about the Chupacabra. But it's just stuff. The goat sucker. Just stuff that tends to happen down there. It's kind of like the story I shared with all of you when a buddy of mine and I drove through Dulce, New Mexico, and there were all the sightings down there, and the say it with me, the old trope of the government is operating a secret base in collaboration with aliens. And we went down there just bouncing around, literally, these horrific roads, which actually had, you're on native territory road signs. And it's like, yeah, I see you guys grade these roads on a regular basis. Not. But I took a look around, we got out, I pulled out my binoculars, looked around, and I just said, as a person who used to work with research facilities, that some of which were in the Western United States in little small towns, because that's the way we like it. I'm like, this is just a bad spot. This is not a place you want to put anything. The geology's wrong, the layout's wrong. Oh, sure. And he pointed out to me, he said, well, there's a couple military vehicles over there. And I said, those are former military vehicles that are like sold to police departments or municipal areas that need them. And I said, given those vehicles have, really overbuilt 4x4 systems, I have no doubt that they were sold to the native community here in New Mexico. And I said, and another thing, I said, what nobody really outside the military ever knows is by the time the government's ready to sell those things, those trucks are so worn out anyway. I said, those vehicles, I would bet you the differentials in the transmissions are probably half shot. I said, now, and I pulled out a map and I laid it on the hood of the vehicle and I said, let's look at a map. I said, now, what are we close to? And I said, southern Colorado. And I said, what's on the southern end of Colorado, south of Denver? Colorado Springs. Who's in Colorado Springs? I said, well, a whole bunch of people, not just the Air Force Academy, but a whole bunch of other people are down there, including defense contractors, including some people I used to work for. And I said, now, what's the probability they're test flying something? And it's, what's the best place to test it? I said, southernmost Colorado and into the northern part of New Mexico, right in this corner, that's all native territory. I said, where, based on the roads we just drove down, there's no ring camera that's going to photograph anything. There's nobody out here with a really high quality camera or similar that's going to photograph anything. You've just got individuals saying, hey, I saw something weird flying around. And I'm like, yeah, I have no doubt. That's I hate to say it, but you always hear these jokes about, rural communities in the United States where people saw something. It's like, well, of course you did, because you're in an area of the country where they can fly stuff or do things that you just don't have the means. This isn't downtown LA where, 2,600 cell phones are all photographing it. And let's not forget, at the same time, we're still talking about people that were test flying the B-2 bomber out of one of the most populous areas of the United States in San Diego and Southern California. And simply because they took off at night, if somebody said, hey, I saw a really weird triangle aircraft. Yeah, it was a 747 out of LAX. Go back to bed. And they did that for over a decade, flying those things out over the Pacific and similar, right in front of God and everybody, and nobody saw anything. So, but we've been down this road before, folks, where it's, our running joke here on Rogue about aliens on the White House lawn. They're rolling it all out. I brought this up last week. We've had two different major news organizations talk about new archaeological evidence that's indicating that they may have found where the Ark of the Covenant is located. Okay, that seems odd timing. Then we have another religiously significant topic, which is not both, but Italian, European, and U.S. media sources, including everyone's favorite, the Daily Mail, talking about the Shroud of Turin is real. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And with, a lot of data behind both of those two sides of that very sensitive topic for people of a religious background. Now we've got the other one that we didn't have time to put together is one of my favorites, folks. UFPs, not an unidentified flying object, but an unidentified flying person. Now,
yeah,
where are UFP again? So all my friends in Mexico, do not get mad at me. You know this as well as I do. But where's one of the places that unidentified flying people are often sighted? Mexico. Now they've been sighted. There were some videos that were posting last night, not videos, but still camera images on Twitter and it literally, folks, looked like a 1950s era man in a spacesuit in a B movie, hovering literally on top of a cloud. I mean, I looked at it and I thought, yeah, and I looked at it and I thought, shit, that could be a Grateful Dead album for all I know. So I'm not making fun of anybody who says, hey, Veles, these things really frighten me. Well, on a flying nun. On the one hand, I get it. I do, because some of this stuff isn't funny. I laugh at it just because of the irony. But they're pulling out all the stops, man.
No, they really are. They're going all out. It's wild. Cowboy, I'm going to send to you the link for that flying man in Utah. It's going to be right in the Telegram. Go ahead and pull it in. And get
I'm also waiting for sightings in India of the god Shiva. I'm waiting for the 9th Mahdi to appear in Iran. I mean, yeah. And as I said on last week's program, and as I alluded to on today's program with my colleagues here, yeah, there we go. Literally sitting on a cloud. To quote Mick Jagger, "Hey man, get off of my cloud."
This looks like it looks
look at
like
the
a
helmet.
1950s sci-fi alien.
Exactly.
It really does.
All you need is two antennae off the
Let
helmet.
me find an actual video, and then we could.
Scotty, New York City. You're absolutely right. Next up, flying carpets.
Danger Will Robinson.
I mean, it could be. Look, well, I know 100% this thing is fake. Exactly. It looks like the Lost in Space robot. You're right about that.
It's Robbie. Robbie the robot.
It's Robbie for sure.
And it's not to heap all of this, folks, into the Project Bluebeam bucket. But when we have this much effort to tap into people's emotions and feelings when it comes to our religious beliefs, to beliefs in or interest in alien visitation or lost civilizations or whatever it may be. I mean, obviously 2-3 months ago, we had all of this coverage of these giant tunnels under the Giza Plateau, really, not just the Giza Pyramid. We're back again on the topic of, hey, we're going to open the cavities inside the Great Pyramid that we don't believe have ever been opened since ancient times. We're pulling out all the stops. And the question I have to ask is, man, when you're hitting the global public this hard with this many topics that are either religious, scientific, popular interest, even including but not limited to protests, city conflict, etc., you are really, really, really spending a lot of money, because you are, and you're spending a lot of resources and really talented people to manage all of this. Go back to Veles' little primer on what is a program and what is a project. You got one big program here with hundreds of projects, and each project is Spaceman in Cloud, Triangular Object, sightings of the Virgin Mary and Guadalupe. I mean, the list goes on. All of this is done for a reason. Now, is it purely to distract? Oh, sure, but why? So it's like, what is coming? What do you morons have planned now?
Right?
Right, yeah. We even floated last week where there's a joke in certain television shows, folks, from the 1970s and early 1980s. One of the ones that comes to mind very quickly is the ABC program called Barney Miller about the police officers in New York City. It was kind of semi-comedy, semi-serious kind of program. But for anybody in New York City, and I mean New York City proper, who lived through the big power outage, I mean, there were movies made about it, the big power outage in whenever that was, 1973, 75, somewhere in there, where characters in TV shows from that era would see like lights flicker in New York. And a character would look at the audience and say, "Oh, please, God, don't fiddle with that light switch right now. Like, please, Lord, don't knock the lights out in Manhattan again. We can't handle this." It's the same kind of thing here, where it's like you're trying to influence people at a deeply visceral, almost like wild animal level. And it's like, why? Because last week, the one where I found myself saying, "Oh, please, Lord, don't start fiddling with that light switch." Last week, we had what out of China? We had all this coverage of people spraying big smoky clouds of basically insecticide, because mosquitoes are supposedly carrying a new version of a COVID-like virus. And then, of course, we had the subsequent coverage of Bill Gates funding using mosquitoes and similar to spread inoculations for people because it'll be helpful. That little piece of shit. Anyway, they're hitting it on all cylinders. So
there was a on social media, and I heard this through actually a doctor in LA too, but yeah, this has supposedly been debunked. However, Trader Joe's was apparently, supposedly, ostensibly caught putting mRNA in their organic chicken.
Yes.
No, I haven't been able to find anything definitive on that. Where are we with that? Does anybody have anything?
I do not.
I don't think mRNA stuff has been approved for use in any sort of animal product here in the United States.
I don't think it has. It wouldn't stop a guy like Bill Gates from saying it's going to save the planet and doing it anyway.
However, I will throw in there that we've had, again, it's right in front of our eyes. We're seeing it, we're hearing it, but we're not internalizing it. Since January of this year, and granted, it's all swirled together in a big cornucopia of pro-anti-Trump feelings, pro-anti political party feelings. What did we have the first 6 to 8 months of this year? We had all this coverage of fast food places saying, oh, well, we're going to take XYZ chemical out of our foods. We're going to reduce the amount of fat in our foods. We're going to make our fries with natural animal fat instead of the stuff we've been using. And it's like, I feel like the guy in the back row at the press conference saying, wait a minute, what exactly were you frying the fries in? Well, we'd rather not get into that. I mean, it's like, and people were saying, oh, you've got Robert Kennedy poking his nose into shit that doesn't. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not even going to go, because he's another lightning rod. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, we're doing this because we're afraid of the administration, which will get certain parties politically jacked up simply because they're hearing the administration did something. How about the bigger question? You mean to tell me at any time you guys could have taken these chemicals that are growing an arm out of a kid's head out of your food?
Yeah.
Well, we don't actually eat any of our own products. Yes, we've noticed that. I mean, folks.
I mean, look at the cafeteria at Monsanto.
Yes.
They don't serve any GMO stuff for their own employees that work there.
And of course, what other highly emotional thing happened this week? The CEO of Pfizer was quoted as saying, well, no one said you had to take the shots. I don't know where all of this is coming from. And it's like, would someone please hit them in the head with a book right now, live?
Actually, I got a video of Veles in the back room. I got it right here. I got to share it. I wish I could have found it earlier, but here it is. Ready?
Yeah. That's me about every hour whenever I'm looking at one of my backdoor websites.
That's like it's a pretty popular meme out there right now. So it's like, hey, what the?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch where they've inserted like another can into his hand or other things. Yeah, that, or I would swear, talk about viral ideas, between that one and the Matthew McConaughey one where he's like intensely smoking the cigarette. Those two are like, if you'd patented those, you'd be worth billions right now. But yeah, the Alaska summit, there's just a lot we don't know. There's a lot of guessing, but again, it's the absence of, to me, that is indicating to us how important it actually is. Because normally, all sides of the media would be trying to capitalize on this thing for pro or con reasons, and it is silence. I mean, to quote from the famous actor from Margin Call, and I don't hear a thing. There's some guessing. You can find certain international media, my usuals in this sort of situation, Japan, India, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, others, to try and glean a little bit more detail about those meetings. But like I said, something this huge, I mean, not to be indelicate, they could have done Ukraine over a phone call or a video conference, Zoom, for God's sake.
Exactly.
No, for this many people, and again, it's kind of like my joke about and it's not really a joke, my comment about UFO researchers, where it's like, if you look at how the UFO research community has learned to tackle certain topics, the way they've gotten very creative at non-traditional ways of exploring topics, which I assure you, certain people in the psychological world, and I don't mean clinical psychologists, I mean our friends, are very interested in that, because it helps them learn new ways to analyze or tackle problems, including big-time think tank people. I've been in the room where there's a lot of snarky snorting going on by people in the room about, my God, why are you wasting our time telling me that UFO researchers have tackled certain problems thusly? And it's like, because it found new ways to look at these problems and find ways to get answers. No different than the Freakonomics people. If we told you it was a Freakonomics angle, you'd be more willing to accept it. And it's the same thing here. It's the absence of anything about what's going on in Alaska that, to me, is one of many signs about how big it must be. I'd also pay big money to be, which I don't have the time for, to take a look at everything from FAA maps to oceanographic data about, for instance, the Coast Guard telling certain vessels you can't come in here, and or looking at certain shipping manifests right now to see where exactly are Russian and American warships in those waters, because I've got a strange feeling there's one hell of a perimeter up there. Where are FAA flights being rerouted right now because of fighter aircraft, or for that matter, let's just call it what it is, armed drones on both sides trying to protect Anchorage from any sort of interference? And as I've often said, folks, for any major meeting, even when I was working with C-level executives, man, you've got security people on the ground no less than 2 weeks prior. I mean, the Russians have been sitting in Anchorage for weeks. And then another little item popped up in the media this morning that caught my attention, which was this kind of, depending on whose side you're on, whatever that means, this kind of snarky angle about, well, the Russian media is not allowed to stay at nearby hotels.
Yeah,
They're at
like
the
a sports complex. It's the journalists that are from.
The journalists are sitting in an American Airlines hangar with cots and things,
cots and stuff. Yeah.
And my first thought was, oh God, this is good, because you got certain parties that'll be like, yeah, take that, you dirty Russians. My thought was, of course they're in a hangar. Everybody's going to be in a hangar. Why? Because A, you got to make sure nobody compromises them, nobody gets a hold of them, nobody threatens them, nobody steals their credentials and tries to pass themselves off as being that person. You've got two ends of protecting those people right now on all sides. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like the peace accords in Serbia, as far as this meeting is concerned, as far as is where I'm coming from, man, stick the damn thing on one of our military bases in Alaska and just close the gates. I mean, you've got to protect and keep. No, you're not staying at the hotel. Are you kidding? Who's going through your laptop? Who's going through your personal effects? Who's trying to compromise you? Of course, everybody is sitting in a hangar right now, because that's how hot this meeting is. They've got to make sure that nobody does anything they're not supposed to be doing, and that everybody is iron wall protected. But I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of topics being covered, and I bet a whole bunch of them are economic cooperation related. Hell, I can hear it now. That within a month or two, we hear that due to the close cooperation between the American and Russian governments, we've mutually come up with a new type of nuclear reactor. I mean, I'm just waiting for that story on Daily Mail.
There's a lot of financial people involved in this meeting as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I do have an image of Zelensky in a hotel nearby in Anchorage. It's right here.
Did you see the one of it? Did you see? There's another image they had this morning of Zelensky as a waiter, and he's just refilling the coffee for Putin and Trump. And Putin and Trump are taking a big red crayon and they're drawing out like a little tiny sliver of Ukraine that still exists.
That's
I mean, I'm not laughing. Millions of people have died in this damn conflict, but at the same time, it's like, and I mean, how much? That's another angle here, folks. How much of the middle finger can you give? Where I know the administration, and I'm using air quotes, I know the administration has said, well, we're not going to, we, the United States, aren't going to sign away territory in Ukraine and give it to Russia. We're not going to pull a Tehran 1944 sort of meeting here where it's like, hey, Poland, sorry, you're going back under a dictatorial power. But at the same time, it's like, but when the agreement is reached, what's Ukraine going to do? I mean, oh, sure, Zelensky will be moved out. We'll move a general or somebody in, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, in the final analysis, but the big one is Europe. No one from the EU is invited. And I mean, on the one hand, one could say, well, what the hell does it concern Europe? And it's like, well, I mean, other than all the money laundering and the weapons and their military forces being on the ground in Ukraine, yeah, you've got a point. I mean, Ukraine or Europe, this doesn't really concern you. It does, but it doesn't, other than, your offshore bank accounts. But Europe has been given a giant middle finger by both countries. They don't even have an observer at this thing, and the Ukrainians aren't even there.
No.
So, like I said, nothing, not so much Davos per se, but boy, London. Nothing will unnerve London at a visceral DNA level than hearing, oh my God, the Russians and the Americans are actually looking at cooperating with each other again. It's like, oh dear God, it's 1865 all over again. Damn it. What are we going to do?
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how today transpires with the Russia talks. I know that hopefully this Ukraine thing gets wrapped up. It would be an incredible new epoch if the United States can work together with the Russians and the Chinese. We'd have 1,000 years of peace and prosperity on this planet, man. 1,000 years. Of course, I'm being, sarcastic, but it will benefit the world so greatly to have these three great powers work together. It'd be amazing. I'd be so happy to see that.
Well, and to use the language of the international environment I was trained in grad school, a rules-based international order and international regimes that keep everybody coloring within the lines of economic and political dealings with one another. But it's something we've raised on our programs, folks, many times, which I know some people are like, well, that's too simplistic. And it's like, well, it's one of many things, yes, but what happens in the international environment if conflict, keyword, not war, but conflict is no longer the central premise of our global economic environment?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the whole thing with Kennedy was a focus on technology and keyword and space exploration rather than a conflict-based global economy. So if everybody can put their swords away, you don't have to disarm, but if everybody who puts their swords away and kind of steps back a bit, oh, sure, there'll still be military development. It's too ingrained in our economy. Even the area of the United States I live in, I've got military bases all over the place and a whole bunch of contractors that are looking in my general direction right now going, hang on there, Veles, we don't need to turn everything off. And quite frankly, there's a whole bunch of people in Russia who feel the same way. You can't just shut down all of Russia's military industry, nor given Russian history would they ever. But if there can be more cooperation on energy, trade, the big loser here is Europe. Britain's got enough mojo in spite of everything that's going on. Although I would point out, I do have to wonder at the insanity of what's going on in Britain right now with, and yes, it's a photo op and it's done by design, but with elderly people being taken into custody because they said something on the internet, and that's no joke. My other personal favorite, for those of you who've seen it, this nonsense going on in Nova Scotia, for those of you who may be aware, a $29,000 fine if you walk in the woods. That's no joke. Go look it up.
And they've changed their reasoning.
$29,000.
Yeah,
to go walk in the woods in Canada.
In Nova Scotia. They don't want you in the woods, and they keep changing the reasons why. At first it was,
what's going on in Nova Scotia then, right? Like, what's really happening?
Well, I don't know that it's Nova Scotia. I just think it's, Canada is England. So it's like, okay, are we testing the social lockdowns again to see how much the public's going to react?
Yeah, social.
But I mean, they've changed the reasoning like 3 or 4 times. The first was, well, we're afraid that you're going to get bitten by an insect that may give you spotted fever or whatever. Okay, fine. Then it was, we're afraid people are going to start fires. It's like, well, granted, Canada, for those of you who don't know, I mean, Canada's had a lot of forest fires this year like they did last. But what is unusually dangerous, oh ye Canadian government, about Nova Scotia specifically? And of course, none of these questions are being answered. Then they went back to, well, you may pick up a disease and you'll spread it to other Canadians. And now my personal favorite is, because there were a whole bunch of people who brought up Canadian data from their own government to say that's never happened, which was, this is the God's honest truth, if Canadians are in Nova Scotia and there should be a fire, they won't be able to outrun the fire. And people came back and said, show me a single occasion where somebody was killed by a forest fire coming after them fast, like a bear, faster than they could get away from it. I mean, you laugh, but I mean, 29 grand, whether Canadian dollars or US, I mean, you have my undivided attention. That is absurd. Now, could you go to court and argue that is a level of fine that just makes absolutely no sense? Sure, but how long is that going to take? So you have a lot of insanity out there, folks. You have a lot of signs and portents, and then of course we've got the big meeting up in Alaska. Which
Last but
also
not
was,
least, have you seen
yes,
the
go ahead.
tentacle bunnies? Have you seen the rabbits running around with tentacles on their faces?
I
Yeah,
have.
that's actually not a new thing.
It
Oh,
isn't.
good.
That is what that is the animal's immune system is not able to deal with an outbreak of HPV. There are people in India that have that condition, and what it is it's human papillary virus. The
Got
immune
it.
system is not strong enough to fight it off, and in the case of India, they live in an area where they can't get the medical care to boost your immune system to counteract it. It's happened to deer. It's happened to other animals. Now, is there a way to deal with it? Yes, you can drop from the air food to the animals. We've done this before, especially with raccoons in the Northeast to cut down on rabies outbreaks and similar. But yes, we have strange horned rabbits. We have jackalopes running around. Beware the jackalopes and the Nova Scotian fires.
Yeah, very well said.
So stay tuned, folks. We're all here with bated breath at Rogue for the aliens landing on the White House lawn, or possibly in the Kremlin. Who knows?
We shall see very soon. Anyway, thank you all for listening in. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll be back Monday. I think Monday, Cowboy, we have a special guest coming on, so that's going to be ecstatic.
I was just prepping the show for that guest. This is I've watched some of the a fair amount of content, and she is brilliant. That's Courtney Turner. So she's probably going to come on in and talk about. We have a couple of items to cover: the Epstein transhumanist conspiracy, the Phoenix conspiracy, and these are items that are not like just some wacky wild theory, but these are actually some items that have data behind them. So it'll be real fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be good stuff. And with that being said, we're over now. Take it away, Cowboy.